I think this tells the story really well. These are the same hybrid in the same field. It's just a difference of where the fungicide was.
Hello and welcome from the field. Phil and I have had a lot of questions over the last few days of what's happening to our crop. It looks like it's maturing very rapidly. And so we figured now's a good time to address it, see what we've learned when it comes to a fungicide application versus maybe a crop that didn't, Phil. So what are you seeing? You know, you have two plants there. What do you want to point out the difference in those two?
Sure. Yeah, I think this tells the story really well. You can see one's green and one's basically dead, or it looks like mid-late October. These are the same hybrid in the same field. It's just a difference of where the fungicide was, well-timed fungicide. This is southern rust. This is how quickly it can take over the canopy, how quickly it can destroy all of that photosynthetic material that the plant has at its disposal. You got to remember, you know, we get most of our 70 to 80% that fills this ear comes from this top part of the plant here, the ear leaf and above,
Okay.
top 8 or 9 leaves. And once those are gone, as we've seen and you've seen driving through the countryside, it's starting to die back from the top, but a lot earlier than normal. So usually that's related to drought and other stresses, but we have southern rust on top of that. Southern rust has taken the leaf area out, and it really accelerated that problem, accelerated getting into maturity. And in some cases, like the example we have over here, is a situation where southern rust took over, and that grain right now is at 25%. So
wow.
it's
Okay.
it's black layered, and it's quickly drying down.
So Phil, there's been a lot of question, is the southern rust, is it going to be similar or different to how a plant would die from an early frost?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And in general, no. I mean, the plant, so even though it looks like it's dying quickly, so southern rust, it's quick because it multiplies so quickly. It creates a lot of spores. You don't see it, you know, 2 weeks behind, essentially 10 days to 2 weeks behind what you're seeing on the plant. So you come out 1 week and it looks, it's not great. And next week looks really bad, and it goes quick. So yeah, it takes over quickly. But what happens is, if you have a frost, you essentially killed that. If it's a hard frost, you essentially killed all those cells in the leaf and the stalk in a lot of cases, and the plant shuts down right now. Does it create a black layer? Yes, it still creates a black layer. They will all create a black layer. That's always a point of confusion for people. If you get, you know, late planted and it gets frosted, it will create a black layer. And unfortunately, it'll create it right then. It'll start creating it as soon as it gets that frost. It realizes it cannot move all of those carbohydrates into that ear. So it senesces and creates that black layer, you know, basically shuts down that kernel getting any more carbohydrates. You know, if that happened at R5, we'd lose about 30 to 40% of our yield. So you don't want that. But the plant shuts down right now. Versus with the stress of a disease, it looks like, oh, it's dead. It's already dead. But this plant knew it was coming. It's had this disease in here for probably well over a month, month and a half, as we've been trying to hit it, you know, with fungicides and whatnot. We know it's been there.
Yep.
The plant knows how bad it is. And so it's slowly, you know, it's slowly sending all those carbohydrates to the ear. Will it be less? For sure. You know, for sure. And in a lot of cases, they've already black layered. I've seen some anywhere from black layer to 70% milk line in the same field, which means that they're all, unfortunately, it's not uniform. You know, the disease is not uniform, and it's going to be probably a loss of a lot of, you know, weight that kernel could have had, and size. You know, obviously, once we get past R4, the only thing we can lose is kernel size, kernel depth, that kind of thing.
So Phil, one of the things that you pointed out was this is the same hybrid in the same field. The only difference is the fungicide application made it on one of these plants, and we maybe missed it on the end row here, the one that you're holding. Yep. How important do you feel like fungicide was in this 25 growing season? How important was picking the right fungicide and then fungicide timing?
I think that's going to be everything. I think it's going to be the timing. So, I mean, you know, like we preached from early on, but this year was just more case in point. VT to R1. You know, if you waited till, you know, brown silk or after that time frame, or early August, in some cases I saw, you couldn't keep ahead of the disease.
Yeah.
You know, it was already taking over. So I think timing is huge. And from what I've seen, there are definitely better fungicides on certain diseases, and in case of southern rust, for sure. So those ones with newer modes of action, the ones that have, you know, still have good control of some of these things, were the ones that showed up. And we saw in a lot of cases, you know, it was obvious when you walked in the field. Now, I can't not mention hybrid tolerance, because I think a lot of people noticed the difference this year. Hybrid tolerance, especially to some of these diseases was huge. So granted, we don't pick for southern rust tolerance up here, but
we might be now.
people are worried about that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think another big point too is this application timing. Knowing southern rust is only a preventative type of disease. You know, making your point here of making that early application is going to be highly invaluable and very important as this disease, if it continues to be a problem and moving into future years. That's something that we don't want to wait on. It's something we need to impact right away and get that sprayed, you know, early on in the season.
Yeah, and most of our fungicides, really, they have some curative properties, but a lot of them are primarily preventative, and a lot of the best use is preventative.
Yeah.
When they're most effective is when we apply them as preventative. That's why the R1, the VTR1 time frame is research back year over year. That's the one that's going to pay. You know, I'm not saying 2 wouldn't, but if you're not ahead of it to begin with, 2's likely not going to pay.
Absolutely. So Phil, as you're evaluating crop and it looks like this, you know, what are your takeaways? What are you looking at? How are you judging what fields we need to harvest? And where should a guy kind of prioritize as he's making a plan here to go pick some corn?
Yeah, so you can see this plan obviously is pretty well done for. You know, it's got a lot of disease on it, but it's shutting down and it's already robbed from that lower stalk. It's already pretty much shut down versus this one here, which still has a lot of green to it. And you've got the ears in your hand.
Yep.
So the one that's obviously green is still finishing filling out. And this is what we always think of crop health. Sometimes we see, oh, it's a green plant, that corn can't be black layered. Well, a lot of times it is. You know, it can still be healthy late season and be black layered. But this is a difference, crop health right here. This one here is, this green one is about 30% milk line. So it's got a ways to go. And this one here is about 80–90% milk line, so it's ready to form a black layer here in the next few days. So it's a big difference. There's obviously a lot of stalk rot. You can see it in here. I saw some pink. There's probably some fusarium and some other stuff in there, but obviously this stalk is going to be very weak going into harvest. So in my opinion, go out there, snap some ears open, see where it's at. If it's completely dead and you're still at 60–70% milk line, you need to make sure you prioritize that field, because it's going to rob everything that it can from this part of the plant to finish that ear, unless it gets hit by frost. Yeah. It's going to try until it can't do anymore, and then it'll create that black layer and be done.
Yep. So make it a priority. Go check your fields, scout, see where your plant health is. You know, make a priority list. You know, check milk lines, see where they are. You know, obviously be checking the fields that maybe we skipped a fungicide application, and then consider that for the 26 cropping season.
Exactly.
You know, how valuable that was. If you have some opportunities to judge those on your operation, you know, you'll probably see the economics behind it, but this is one of those years that it's really going to pay.
Pay big. Hopefully 2026 is not another southern rust year. We've had it twice, and that's very unusual. So I'm not encouraging you to select based on that, but in this case, 2025 fungicide definitely paid.
Definitely paid. Anything else, Phil, you want to add?
Nope, not for today.
That's wonderful.
Looking forward to good harvest weather.
Yeah, we hope you all have a very safe and prosperous harvest, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Yep.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.
Stay in the know with Liqui-Grow.